Last time on Skoolie Life, I rode out of Montrose and crossed Black Bear Pass and down into Telluride to drink a beer. And the next few days were spent exploring the same general area in the San Juans south of Ouray and looking for trails and mining ruins and old ghost towns, and I found a few. My first stop was Ironton, just 7 miles south of Ouray. It was founded in 1893, and within a few months there were 300 buildings in Ironton. The last resident died in 1960. Lots of concrete foundations can be seen from the road, but only a handful of buildings remain. But it's still just a wonderful place to stop and watch the clouds come in and the trees drift in the wind. The colors are amazing in the middle to late September, and I think they peak around end of September and early October. I spent a little over an hour exploring the trails above Red Mountain and around Ironton before the rain came in and started penetrating my riding gear. If you've ever been wet and cold, and the wind from a motorcycle chills you even further, you know how scary it gets sometimes. And at about this point I started looking for shelter. I didn't want to head back, but if I got completely wet, the weather changes so quickly when it rains. It goes from low 70s to low 50s, high 40s sometimes. So once it started raining, I started looking for some kind of shelter, and luckily it wasn't too long before I found some. As I continued south on 550, I noticed an abandoned mine shaft over on the left and decided it might be warm and dry. Just so happens it was right across from Black Bear Pass, and then I discovered Longfellow Mine. I'm just off of 550, on the other side of 550 from Black Bear Pass, which I did the other day, Monday, and it's Thursday now. And I wanted to come back up here and do some exploring, but the weather has turned really shitty, and I figured I'd duck in here. There's a couple of places to take shelter. I've got a waterproof jacket, but I don't have waterproof gloves or pants, so this mesh, you'll just go right through this mesh and it'll start freezing. I had to turn around and ride back down the mountain in freezing ass cold wet. But anyway, I found this little shelter. It's probably one of the better preserved. I guess this is some kind of a stamp mill or sorting something. I'm not really sure. They've got a bunch of old equipment over there. It looks like it used to have an electric motor on there that's now gone. But I don't think this place is that old. This is probably. I'm thinking this is probably from the 30s, 20s or 30s. But I've got relative shelter And if this doesn't work out, I've got an old mine shaft over there. That's what first caught my eye. I thought, well, I can get into that mine shaft and be dry at least, be warmer. But you can see the storm is rolling in. It's kind of been hovering over these mountains here since I rolled up here. The rest, the rest of the world just looks partly cloudy, but you get up into the mountains and the weather changes. All that moisture gets swept up into the cold air and condenses, and turns to rain. And that's your meteorology lesson for today. I'm just glad to be out, man. It's cold as shit up here, so I'm kind of hesitant to go too far up the mountain, especially with the weather like this. There's nothing for me to do except find shelter like this. And anyway, this is a little rat's nest of, I don't know. They used to keep tools in here or something, I don't know. But that's, it's kind of a good sign that this is not that old. I guess it could be from the 50s, but I'm thinking a little bit older, just not 1800s. So anyway, glad to be under shelter. Wish it was a little bit warmer. Wish there was less of a breeze coming through here. How about this for a trick? I folded those doors and propped them up, and it's blocking about 80% of the wind that's coming through here. It feels much nicer. Maybe this wind will start, the rain will stop here shortly. I kind of get antsy to go exploring, but I don't want to freeze. And I don't want to have to turn around, because if I get wet, I'm not going to turn around. I'm going to go back. Or at least go somewhere that's warm and drink beer and eat pizza or some shit like that. Tacos, gnarly tacos. Well, there's a couple places in Uray. That's 15 minutes from here. 10 minutes. The cold, wet drizzle never really let up, so I decided to head north into Ouray and warm up with a beer and some food. I thought I had the whole place to myself until this one-legged character showed up. Ravens are pretty cool. It's a new experience to me relatively. All we have is crows in the south. These guys always seem to have something interesting to do or say. After I finished warming up, I headed north into Ridgeway and stopped to get some groceries before heading into Montrose. But on the way further still, I noticed this magic bus. Yes, it really is a magic bus. Can you imagine that? So join me next time as I head south in the bus into Silverton in the middle of a snowstorm. I had to get out of the mountains before I was snowed in for the winter.